My name is Craig Ballinger. I am the MP&E inspector.
Craig is checking the handbrake chain for tightness, which will let him know if the handbrake is being applied. Yes, it is. Using a flashlight, Craig is looking under the locomotive for loose bolts, missing cotter pins, and other components that may be missing or broken. Now Craig points out an air valve that is not locked in either the open or closed position. That needs to be corrected. In the front of the locomotive, Craig is checking to verify that the knuckle is operative and that all air hoses are in place. Craig is measuring the height of the pilot or snowplow and assuring proper clearance from the ground. Proper boarding the locomotive requires using the three-point contact rule. 2 hands and a foot, making contact with the handrails and the step at all times. Inside the cab, Craig is checking for loose or broken controls and for the correct labeling of all the various controls. Walking on the outside walkway, Craig is checking for secured hand railings and to make sure there is no slip or trip hazards on the walkway, such as debris, oil, or diesel fuel. And Craig completes his inspection by looking at the inside of the long hood for any fuel, water, oil, or exhaust leaks.
My name is Jeffrey McCormick, and I'm the Hazmat Inspector for the Safety Division of the Arizona Corporation Commission.
Jeff first examines the qualification stencil to ensure the tank car is currently qualified to transport hazardous materials. He then checks to ensure the required placards and markings are present and that the car is equipped with required top and bottom couplers. These couplers are required on tank cars by law and help reduce damage to adjacent tank cars in the event of a derailment. After Jeff has completed the ground level inspection, a top level inspection is performed. Let's climb aboard. Jeff is checking to see that all fasteners and closures are inspected for tool tightness. The pressure relief safety device is checked to ensure that it hasn't been fouled by debris. Next, Jeff removes the shipper security seals and the protective housing is opened to check the valves and fittings. When Jeff has completed his inspection, he notes the serial numbers of the replacement seals and applies them to resecure the openings. The new seal numbers will be provided to the railroad and to the customer.
Hi, my name is Joe Pinkerman. I work as a state operating practices inspector.
Joe is pointing out the blue flag, which is displayed for the protection of employees fouling the track. The blue flag is in the correct location and is the correct distance from the equipment. Joe confirms that the derail is properly secured with lock-in hasp and fastened. He is checking to see that the locomotive was left standing in the clear. This is indicated by the clearance marks painted on the rails. Now Joe is making sure the switch is properly lined and locked to prevent movement into the track that's being protected. He is checking the handbrake chain for tightness. This indicates the handbrake was properly applied to prevent any movement of the locomotive. And finally, Joe is observing crews performing switching operations. He's also verifying the proper shoving of cars and checking to see if the crew is properly riding on equipment.
My name is Joe Peralta. I'm the Arizona Corporation Commission track inspector.
Joe is checking the connecting rod for lost motion and to confirm that the connecting rod bolt is equipped with a cotter pin. Next, Joe verifies that the switch point fits properly against the stock rail. Now he's checking the transit clip bolts for tightness and making sure all necessary cotter pins are in place. Joe is also checking the switch rod bolts for tightness and making sure all cotter pins are present. Any bolt drilled for a cotter pin must have a cotter pin in place or else it is considered defective. As Joe walks along the switch, he is verifying that the stock rail is seated properly in the switch plates and that there are no cracks or breaks in the switch point or stock rail. As he continues walking along the switch, he checks for the condition of the ties, securement of gauge plates, and the condition of the rail. During the last part of the inspection, the switch is reversed and Joe measures for proper gauge between rails and then checks the condition of the guardrail and what's called the point of the frog.
Hi, my name is Chris Watson. I'm the grade crossing inspector as well as the assistant supervisor for the rail safety program.
Chris begins his inspection by verifying the proper signage such as advanced pavement markings, crossbucks, and signs indicating the number of tracks. Each crossing is measured for width. Then Chris checks the condition of the crossing surface and takes measurements of the crossing from all 4 quadrants. Railroad Safety Supervisor Brian Lehman checks the junction box to assure it's secured. The junction box must be locked to prevent entry by any unauthorized person. The cover of the gate mechanism must be secured as well. Next, the lenses and the light head are checked for cleanliness and for damage. Brian then inspects a bank of batteries for tightness of the connections and to confirm that the batteries are identified. Each wire terminal must be identified by an appropriate tag, and the wire must be tool tight on the terminal. Finally, Brian verifies that the crossing identification includes the street name, milepost number, and the Department of Transportation number. Also, he makes sure the 800 number is posted so people can report any emergencies or malfunctions at the crossing.